Well, hello everybody. I'd just like to say thank you very much for attending tonight, coming to join us for what is going to be another amazing event. Do you know, it only seems like a couple of months ago since we did our last International Women's Day back in 2021. And again, we were joined by a panel who chose to challenge. And some of the panelists from back in 2021 have actually come back and joined us again for a second session in 2022. Glutton for punishment. I see Louise laughing there and Yvonne with a smirk on her face there as well. So welcome to tonight's event. The 8th of March is a very important day for women around the world. And it's an opportunity to celebrate women both in and out of work. However, whilst we celebrate International Women's Day, we've got to remember there's still so much that needs to be done to eliminate discrimination, gender stereotypes, bias, and create a world that offers opportunities, fairness, inclusion, and respect, both in the workplace and outside. So this evening, again, we're going to follow on from last year's event. We've got a very lively panel discussion debate that's going to take place this evening. And tonight we're joined by 5 who I think are inspirational, thought-provoking leaders in the world of work today. I personally hold a lot of respect for these women who's joined us this evening, and many of them have been supportive of me, you know, throughout for a number of years. So thanks very much for all of that. So let me introduce everybody quickly to the panel. Tonight, we are joined by Yvonne Gilfillan. If you give us a quick wave, Yvonne. Yvonne is a CSR professional, an FIR advocate and trainer, and so much more, as you're going to find out this evening. Vanessa Harwood-Whitcher. Hi, Vanessa. Vanessa is our chief executive for IOSH. Louise Hosking. For some reason, I can't see you on my little tiny screen here, Louise, but I take it you're waving anyway. So Louise is the this year's IOSH president. She is a business owner, managing director, and also the founder of the OneWISH Foundation. We have Emma Preston. Hello, Emma. How are you doing? So Emma is a writer, a creator, a director, and also, I believe, a student. And I think Emma's going to bring a nice little twist on tonight's event as well. And last but not least, Ria. I don't know if you're there, Ria. Give us a quick wave. Again, I can't see you, Ria, off my screen. So Ria Sooknarine is from Trinidad and Tobago. She is an OSH professional for a number of years, and she's also serving on IOSH Council. So welcome to the panelists tonight. I think the whole ethos of tonight, we're going to hear personal stories, sharing the views of what it's like to be a woman in today's world. And hopefully at the back end of it, you know, they're going to give some good advice and some tips and some hints on what we can take away today to introduce into the workplace tomorrow that really can make a difference, you know, and break the bias, which is really what this is all about. So without further ado, let's get on with tonight's event. Please do remember it is a webinar session, so there is no live chat function. However, there is a Q&A box in the bottom. If anybody wants to raise any questions, please feel free to type them in. And should we have time towards the end, we'll pick up these questions and we'll take them to the panelists. So sit back, enjoy, and we hope you enjoy tonight's event. Just as a very quick introduction, we're just going to play a very short introduction video that's been prepared to celebrate International Women's Day. And thank you. we all good? Can we see that?
Hi, I'm Vanessa Harwood-Whitcher, Chief Executive of IOSH. I'm proud to be part of International Women's Day 2022. As a female leader, I'll be sharing my experiences as a senior professional in the business world, as well as how IOSH is actively working to break the bias. Join me and other amazing women at our International Women's Day webinar on the 8th of March at 6:30 UK time to find out more.
Hi, I'm Louise, Hosking, IOSH President, and I'm looking forward to the 8th of March, which is International Women's Day. I break the bias by supporting women in our profession to reach their ambitions and go beyond by being visible and confident in everything they do.
I will try to influence others' beliefs and actions to help create a gender-equal world. One free from stereotypes, bias and discrimination. I'm hoping that by sharing my work and experiences and by championing diversity and inclusion in the workplace, that I can help to break the bias.
I am privileged to have been raised by a strong woman who broke the bias every day. From being orphaned at a young age, she put herself through university, eventually becoming one of less than 10% of commercial driving license holders that are women. She now continues to manage every aspect of her own self-made business in the oil and gas industry. She's shown me that the idea that some jobs are for men and some are for women is just a social construct, and that ideas like these only limit our potential as humans. Break the bias.
Hi everybody, very much looking forward to speaking with you on the 8th of March at the IOSH International Women's Day Conference. This is a wonderful opportunity for us to talk about beating the bias. Beat the bias, that's what it's all about. And I have a very unique perspective which I'm looking forward to sharing with you all. I make no apologies for the comedy that I'll introduce, but trust me, I'll take it very serious as well. For me, it's all about the difference and the strength that we bring to each other.
Well, hello, I'm Yvonne Gilfillan, and on this International Women's Day 2022, I encourage all of you, each and every one of you, to break the bias towards a more equitable world where everyone feels that they belong. To all around the globe, happy International Women's Day. Thank you.
I am supporting International Women's Day to demonstrate my commitment to help eliminate discrimination, bias and stereotypes. To help break the bias, I am raising awareness to gender inequality and gender parity.
Imagine a gender equal world, a world where our differences are valued and celebrated, a world that's inclusive, that is free of stereotypes, discrimination, bias. Together we can forge women's equality. Collectively, we can break the bias. This is me in support of International Women's Day.
Andy, thank you very, very much for that. Video presentation and the intro. Hear me all right, because I'm a very quiet spoken individual here as a woman, as you know, so I'm hoping you can hear me all right. No comments in the participants box there relating to the accent. I will do my best to be as clear as possible. I feel very, very honoured to have been asked along to speak at this second year event for me for the International Women's Day with such an incredible panel of amazing, beautiful, worthy, valuable women, assets, not just in the workplace, in their communities and around the globe. You are incredible. But before I go on about the women's side of things too much, you know, it is International Women's Day, let me give a huge shout out to Andy McNair, Anthony Atencio. They are working in the background to get this up and running. Gentlemen, we cannot do it without you. To all our colleagues, all the participants here, irrespective of which gender you are, irrespective of your sexuality, your race, your religion, you know, your sexual orientation, I don't care. You are welcome. There is no bias here. We are going to challenge the norm. We are going to break the bias with a view that we will ask questions. We will have awkward moments. I'm quite sure these panels don't know really what's in for them tonight. I think there's a few quaking in their shoes. Would that be correct, Louise? I'm quite sure it will be. So let me just give you a few stats out there to break it out. And I think it's really, really important. First and foremost, let me send warmest love, support, best wishes to every individual that's affected in the Ukrainian and Russian war at this time, and to all their friends, all their families, all their colleagues around the globe who are affected and are worried, senseless about everything that's going on over there in that war-torn country. We need to be very, very mindful of that. We are celebrating women, but we also need to be sending out our love and our warmest impact to all of those directly affected. Aside from that, 6 women are killed every hour around the world, mostly by men who are known to them. 113 countries do not have laws to ensure equal pay for equal work on parity with the men that they work alongside. 17 countries limit the time that women have outside the home, the travel for women outside the home, when they can travel, how they can travel, who they can travel with. There are 18 countries that allow men to prohibit their wives from working. 29 countries restrict the hours that women work. Now, I have to say, as a woman who works in construction in excess of 60 hours plus every single week, I'd quite like that law to apply to me personally as a woman of a certain age. But it is restrictive, it's prohibitive, it's discriminatory, and it just lends to the role that women land up finding themselves in because of these patriarchal domineering systems that are well past their due date and then effectively leave women, particularly women of a certain age like myself, in poverty later on down the line. And that's a whole other issue we're not going to get into. But if you take into account all of those particular facts, if you take into account that every individual, not just women, but every individual will suffer bias, discrimination and prejudice at different points in their life for multiple reasons, because people are invariably ignorant. And even the best intentions, people can be ignorant. So International Women's Day says, imagine a gender equal world, a world free of bias, stereotypes and discrimination, a world that is diverse, equitable and inclusive, a world where difference is valued and celebrated. Together, we can forge women's equality. For me, it's equality for everyone, but because it's International Women's Day, I am here to host this panel and I will ask those questions. So to that very, very point, why on earth do we need an International Women's Day? I'm going to put you on the spot. Vanessa, please.
Well, it gives us a voice, doesn't it? So it's a chance for us to show what we're worth, our merits, our skills, the things that we bring to the world, and to work with others to help them to understand what goes on in our minds and what we bring to the party. So for me, it's absolutely a day of celebration. It's a day of communication, and it's a day of collaboration.
Good answer. Okay. Is it just a talking shop? Is it a day that it's just a talking shop and nothing will change beyond this day? Ria?
No, I think that the event helps us to raise awareness and let everybody around the world, different genders, you know, wherever you are, let them know the challenges that we face, what it's like in the workplace, in our shoes, and you know, just to raise awareness and with hopes that would help break the bias.
Thank you. Emma, your views, please.
I've raced up the motorway just to speak with you ladies, and also, of course, Anthony and Andy. And I wouldn't have done that if I thought it was just a chat shop. Having lived on both sides of the fence, so for everybody who's listening in, I am transgender. But having lived on both sides of the fence, bias exists. And the very reason why things like this have to exist is because it isn't long ago that, you know, there was segregation around the world for some women. It's not really that long ago since women were allowed to vote. And when I read things like what you've just said there about 29 countries restrict the hours that women work, do they restrict the hours that men work as well? And if not, does that mean that the men are more capable of doing the work? Or, you know, so no, it's not just a chat shop. Things like this have got to happen to progress things for women in the future.
I agree, Emma. Thank you very much. And Louise, not leaving you to the last here, but you know, after this is another question coming your way.
Yeah, I don't do talking shops, Yvonne. You know, if I'm setting myself out to do something, I'm into creating change and action, and Vanessa's nodding, and transformation. And you know something, we need greater gender parity in what we're doing, because if everybody's thinking differently and we celebrate those different approaches, that has true power about it. And in health and safety, when we make better decisions, you know what, we save more lives. So for me, this, you know, I know that I've had to be at least twice as good as the next man coming up behind me. And I don't do talking shops, Yvonne, I do transformation. So yeah, and it's been a great day, and I've seen some real action on social media as well today. So yeah, this is not a talking shop, this is about action.
Everything I wanted to hear from you. Thank you very much, ladies. Okay, I'm going to refer to a book that a very close friend of mine gifted me just the other day, and it's called Women Don't Owe You Pretty by Florence Given. Worldwide bestseller. Many of you may very well have read it. But for those that you haven't within the audience, there's a particular section here I just want to read out with her gift. Obviously, I'm giving her due credit. We live in a patriarchal society which prioritizes our desirability above everything and anything else, which means that life is easier when we dress up, life is easier when we shave, life is easier when we wear makeup to work. Life is easier when we've made a visible effort with our appearance. Life is easier when we reflect society's idea of beauty. Full stop. So, ladies, I think that's very pertinent, given the fact that there are some very, very firm views on how women should appear. I will share with you, back in my 20s, which was some time ago, I was the stereotypical salesperson, business development as they're called now, that would wear the short skirts, high heels, long blonde hair cascading down my back, full face of makeup, low cut tops. Think of dare I say it, not perhaps a pretty Dolly Parton-esque type person back in the day, in the 20s, okay? That was how people perceived the female gender, particularly into sales, would gain the business. And oh my heavens above, I gained the business, not without, I have to say, the influx of very unwanted advances. Because people saw me looking a particular way, they thought perhaps my morals were as loose as my clothing, perhaps. That wasn't the case. So here's the question to you, ladies. How many of you are receiving regular, if not daily, comments on your appearance? Louise, please.
Yeah. Been really interesting being in the presidential team. I mean, it's what we call the likability bias, isn't it? Because, you know, we get, you know, and I've certainly felt it being, you know, the whole time that I've been in the presidential team, having, you know, this whole likability bias. So if I'm too harsh, I'm being bossy. And if I'm empathetic, you know, and I am quite a girly girl, then I can't be effective. And I've had complaints about the way that I look when I dress up, when I dress down. So it actually doesn't really matter the way that I look, because I'm actually going to be judged. I've been judged on the fact that I might wear the same things more than once. Whereas, I've regularly said the boys in the presidential team can just change the colour of their tie. So yeah, I think we are massively judged on our appearance, and there is a pressure that goes along with that, you know, to look a certain way, to be seen as credible. And it comes back to that sort of credibility gap that exists, and that you have to be a certain type of leader to lead, which I completely disagree with. So, you know, I think leaders can come in all approaches, and part of some of the work that Ria's involved in with me in council is demonstrating that actually, if we mix people up, you don't have to be a forceful, direct, you know, person who just directs and tells what people what to do all the time. There's different approaches. So yeah, appearance for me has been an interesting journey, Yvonne.
Thank you. Ladies, feel free to jump right in here with your own experiences. While you're doing that, let me just say to Vanessa, obviously Chief Exec of IOSH, there is and has been for many, many years with many, many professional organisations, an expectation to wear corporate attire to attend interviews, corporate attire to attend chartership interviews, peer reviews, fellowship, etc. Will that continue to be the case moving forward?
Well, I'm interested in people's minds and their capability to do a job. And I think all sorts of achievements, whether it's going for a job, going for your chartership, is on your competency and what you bring. It's not on what you're wearing and what you look like. And that's a very strong belief that I have. But, you know, I think we are preconditioned around that. And it's something I've really struggled with the whole of my working career, you know. Just going back to what you were saying about being told what to wear, you know, I was lucky enough to get some coaching, and my first senior leadership position, each of the senior leadership team were allocated a coach who shadowed you for the day, and they followed you around all the meetings that you did. So I'd had one-to-ones with my chief exec, with my team. I'd gone out to see some of my salespeople who were out on the road and done some creative working with them. And we were driving back, the coach and I, in the car on the way back to the office, and I said, right, you know, give us your feedback then, thinking this is a great learning opportunity. And she said two things to me. Firstly, you get on really well with your boss. Well, that was great, but I'd be kind of worried if I was a director and I didn't get on with the chief executive. So, but that was useful to know. And the second one was, you need to wear makeup and put heels on to be credible. And that was in 2009, I think, 2010. So not that long ago. And my response, and so this is a woman on a woman, and I was speechless for a short moment, and as most people will know, that's quite unusual. And then I turned around and said, thanks very much for the feedback, but I'm going to ignore it. I've been a tomboy most of my life and it's never stopped me, and it hasn't stopped me. And I would love that woman to know now that, you know, I've reached one of my career dreams, and I haven't got any makeup on this evening and I've got slippers on right now. So
I'm loving that. I'm loving it and completely loving it. Emma, obviously challenges for you.
Yeah, well, I have got complete makeup on and I've got my Ukrainian eyes on, although I do have the blue and the yellow the wrong way around, because let's face it, if I have it the other way around, it'd look a bit top heavy. However, if there's any Australians watching, it's the right road round. So we're okay. But yeah, did you know, for me, I have an incredibly different perspective. But for example, this blouse that I've got on today, this was actually the very first blouse I ever bought when I transitioned, and it's my favorite one because it's a Chinese blouse. Now, this is an interesting thing for you. So today I got 4 ladies who all commented on it saying, wow, where did you get that from? I'm like, well, it's 12 years old and I got it from August Direct, you know, when they did clothes. However, when I wore it quite recently to an event, a bloke just said, blooming heck, flashing your boobs there, love. And I thought, right, okay. And I think that plays into exactly what you're saying there. When it, I just noted a couple of bits down there as well, talking about trying to blend in and etc. And goes a bit on the back of what Vanessa was saying there as well. When I did transition over, I was literally throwing away a £100,000 job, but I didn't know I was. But the point when I did is when my then boss said, if I were you, I'd switch back because this isn't going to work for you. And I said, why is that? He says, do you not realize how hard you're going to have to work to get back to where you are? I went, what, as transgender? And he went, no, as a woman. And I'm like, okay. So that plays into all of that, really. But the other thing is, we started this, and I don't want to take up too much more time because we've got Ria's view on this as well. But right at the top of that, Yvonne, you talked about different colours and you could just change a tie for a bloke and this, that, and the other. So every morning when I get up, I have to think, what tops have I had on this week? What colours have I had on my eyes? Oh, I don't want to wear that one again. Oh, if I do this, I do that. And I'm not going to appeal to such a person if I do this. And I think, why am I doing that? Why am I doing that? So now sometimes I go to bed with my makeup on and go to work the same day, the next day with the same makeup. But yeah, it exists in a big, big, big way. And yeah, the changing the ties, totally agree.
Excellent, thanks, Emma. Ria, obviously all the way Trinidad and Tobago, beautiful part of the world. Culturally, is there an emphasis on the way that you need to dress, appear? You know, you're an absolute gorgeous, incredible woman, very talented, professional woman. But is there a need to be so gorgeous as well in order that you may elevate through the ranks within your profession or within any part of the industry in your part of the world?
I think it would vary from organization. So based on my experience, I've had, so appearance does play a huge part in the expectation of the role. So it comes from the interview phase to when you land the role to when you're performing in the role. I remember my first role, I loved wearing, I was right out of school, I loved wearing these dresses and I would wear a blazer over it. So it was an office job really for more administrative health and safety. And I was told, no dresses allowed, pants only, you're in health and safety is a technical field. I was told my hair was too long, has to be short if you want this job. So, you know, there are expectations. As a female, you're expected to look a particular way, you're expected to dress a particular way. Even, I remember, even down to when you're applying for roles and filling out the application forms. It comes down to if you're white, black, or other. So how do you feel that, you know, and you know, what is the type of information? What does that have to do with your skill set, with how you're going to perform in the job?
It doesn't, and it all comes down to quotas and ratios that are completely outdated and only serve to further discriminate and prejudice against various sections of the community. Louise?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one really quick point. I think this is about being authentic, because I dress the way that I feel comfortable, and when I've worn those corporate shoes, Vanessa knows, I've had complaints about wearing corporate looking shoes, and I've had complaints about looking corporate. But the other thing that I would say as well is that within the presidential team, we've had discussions about appearance as a group of individuals. And actually, some of the men that I'm serving with actually ask the same questions as well. So if we're talking about gender equity, I think this is a conversation that men also want to have, but they're not quite sure how to have it. And I think they feel stuck sometimes, because we've had huge conversations in the presidential team about wearing ties. And when I became president, it was the men who said, what is your expectation? And I was, be you, be who you are. You know, obviously you're still on the presidential team, but just show us who you are. And I think it's about being true to yourself.
Thank you very much. I completely agree. And I'll go one stage further. David Beckham made a lot of money endorsing the use of the man skirt, as it were, the sarong, way back, and it became a fashion icon. I don't recall many men certainly walking into a site office in construction wearing such attire. But what we're basically saying is society is evolving. You know, it shouldn't be down to dress. It is about ability. It is about the qualities that individuals bring. So if we're saying that's still very prevalent in our society, how do we change that? The only way we can change it is by looking at changing the policies that we have out there. There is an expectation. We need to remove that expectation, and we can only remove the expectation if there is a blanket field out there that within industry and multiple industries, you come as yourself. If you're comfortable wearing appropriate pajamas, you know, into an office setting, because that's where you're comfortable and that's how you better perform, provided there's not any parts of your body, you know, that would be deemed to be unsightly, unsavory, whatever, on show by whomever, and they won't take offense. Well, why not? Does it stop you performing? Does it stop you from doing your job? Well, maybe if you were in health and safety and going out into an oil rig, into a construction site, it might be deemed as a bit of a hazard, particularly if the pajama bottom drawstrings came loose or something like that. But we need to move beyond the norm right now. And I'd love to hear from you how we do that, because it's only one element of the bias and discrimination about what we wear, how we're treated, and how effectively women are discriminated against, right through from the selection process, early selection process. Are they even getting through? Is their application even meeting the selection panel to even be considered? Through the recruitment process, and then again towards that onboarding, you know, and at what point are they going to be told, as I was some years ago, you're far too corporate. You're far too corporate. I'm not corporate anymore. I'm actually made an effort and put a wee frock on today, which is unknown for me, because since I've joined and really very site orientated, I love my trousers like you, Vanessa. I am a tomboy through and through. You know, I was the one that was playing football, climbing trees, swimming in the canal, breaking everybody else's bones, not my own, thankfully. You know, doing things that young ladies were never expected to do. So what I'm saying here is, did it stop me from being able to do what I needed to do on a daily basis? No. Does it devalue me or you or any of our ladies and women in the workplace? No, it should not. How do we change it? Question to the floor, happy to.
Yeah, I just thought I'd come in there. Let me lower my hand there. You're absolutely right, everything you've said. But there has to be people prepared to be trailblazers, to be leaders, to be able to carry the banner. And that means that somebody has got to be different. Somebody has got to be prepared to put themselves in, let's face it, potential harm's way. Now, again, taking it from my point of view, that's what I did. I openly did that. But when we talk about women, somebody has got to be prepared to say, no, that isn't right. Or, do you know what? I am going to wear pants. Or, do you know what? I'm going to come on with an olive face mask today because that's what I want to wear. And the only way that you can start to change things is by people realizing there's a need for it. And we can talk till the cows come home, but until that person picks up the flag and leads the battle, then, well, who's going to follow? Who is going to be the shepherd, and who is everybody else going to stay as sheep? And so my question is, how do you find those trailblazers?
I'd love to leap in there, really, because I think I'm in a really lucky position to be a chief executive of an organisation, because obviously it's totally in my gift to be able to make change, to change a culture in an organisation and to get people thinking about that. So you know, we talked about action, and you know, Louise and I joke about having checklists and action lists. You know, we're not just words. So, you know, at IOSH, we're investing really heavily in bringing external expertise in to help us, to enable colleagues and volunteers to bring their whole selves to work, to the volunteering activity that they have. And so part of that is allowing opportunity to have conversations around how do you bring your whole self to work. So what is it about you that you want to bring to work, and what are we doing to maybe not make it feel safe for you to do that? So we're just starting those conversations within our IOSH with the staff to start off with. So we've been running focus groups, trying to understand that, and you know, I've absolutely been championing that because it's so important. So it doesn't matter what I wear and whether I come with an olive face pack on or not. My actions and my words are the most important thing that I can bring to IOSH to make that change, and I'm absolutely passionate about doing it. You know, I was overwhelmed when I became chief executive, the number of messages that I had from people saying, I'm so glad that it's you. That was really nice, but actually it was loaded with, because you're a woman. And I felt a huge responsibility with that I'd not quite appreciated, and it was a bit of a learning for me. So I've got the position, and you know, I fully intend to make absolute use of it. And you know, it's great that I think alongside Louise in her year of presidency that she is advocating exactly the same things. So right across the leadership of IOSH, you know, got two very amazing women trying to do that. And I would also say allyship with Peter Bonfield, who's our chair of board of trustees, who absolutely advocates and supports and champions you know, women and EDI more generally. So it's through the organisation, and you know, wow, what change we can make if we pull together on that. So totally think that it's in our gift, isn't it? And I'm lucky to have a position to be able to do that.
Yeah, just to pick up from Vanessa on that, is that you know, I've always found myself in organizations where I've got a bit of a job to do, you know, and that's just, you know, how I like to work, I think. But I do think the nature of our profession traditionally has been about compliance, and here's a checklist and this is how you do it. So we, you know, there is, you know, still people within our profession who look at things that are very black and white. And in the world that we're in at the moment, there is no black and white. There's certain things that are fixed. I mean, I was taking a director's course recently, and one of the directors, who was a great CEO as well, described how when you run a business, you're juggling lots and lots of balls, and some of those balls are glass balls, and you can't let those glass balls drop. And I thought that was an amazing analogy. And health and safety is the same, is that we have some fixed things, but actually there's an awful lot of things that surround innovation and being creative and using all of these skills that are traditionally much more feminine skills. And so I think that we're going through something of a clash of cultures at the moment. And I'm certainly heralding through my year of presidency, it's all about sustainability, it's all about behaviours, it's all about modern, forward-looking, proactive leadership. So how do we look forward rather than saying what's wrong all the time? And I think some of the perhaps friction that we get within our profession is those two cultures coming together at this moment in time. And exactly as Vanessa says, we've got an incredible kind of trio of us at the moment, where Peter absolutely, you know, talks about EDI constantly. I'm the first female president for 6 years. And I'm not just throwing down a ladder for other members to follow me, I'm going to throw down a net. So, you know, I'm trying to encourage as many of our members to sort of step forward as well. So I think all of those things definitely come into play. About leadership and getting people into those leadership positions, and it's not easy.
Yeah, and it isn't an easy job, and I think you've got a lot of work ahead of you, ladies, without a shadow of a doubt. Vanessa and Emma picked up on this, as did I. Thank you, Emma. Is the fact that the mention that because you're a woman. Yeah, how many comments have you had to the contrary? How many comments have been made to any of the leadership team or any of these women on the panel here because you have progressed in your career? It's because you're a woman, not because you have the ability. It's not because you've got the requisite skill set, because you have the qualities that are required, but it's because you're a woman.
I definitely feel like I've made up the numbers in job interviews in the past. So particularly in some of my more sort of, as I was coming up through the management ranks, where you maybe had to come along to psychometric days and you'd be with the other candidates, so you could see I was the only woman. and you'd sort of sit there thinking, I'm not fitting with this, and I feel like I'm making up the numbers. And you know, I can think of times when you know, I've been asked interview questions which are just a bit odd. So panel of, you know, 4 men for one of my first management positions, asking me if I've ever been rebuffed. But it's just the sort of weirdest question. Well, of course I have, but you know, what do you mean by that? So, you know, I think quite often I've felt that I've been making up the numbers or ticking a box in some shape or form, and you know, they're not the type of organisation that I particularly want to work for. So I guess it suited both of us, didn't it?
I think from my point of view, mine's a bit different. When I lived on the other side for 48 years, not once did I fail to get a position that I went for, which was 4 times. And I was only reflecting on this a couple of weeks ago when I was planning for now and the conference earlier. And 3 times I was headhunted into a role as well. So I had a very successful career. Now, the one thing I will put a caveat on what I'm about to say is I don't actually know whether me being transgender or whether me being a trans woman is now causing me a lot of challenges to get on now, which is the very reason that I've gone, do you know what, I'm stepping back, I'm going to university and I'm going to learn television production and I'm going to make my own stuff. But I have genuinely found it so much harder to get on recently, and I think now I very rarely get challenged as me being transgender. So if I didn't tell you guys and I put on my normal twee voice instead of the voice because I'm tired now, most people probably wouldn't even know. So I suspect now I am being hit by the gender card, whereas before it was more about being transgender. So I do believe that that balances up with what you've just been saying, really.
Thank you, Emma. Again, Vanessa and Louise, Ria, Andy and Anthony are on the call. Emma, you know this, but for anyone else that's listening to the panel discussion, this is the first time that IOSH for an event have been thankfully graced by the presence of a trans woman like yourself, Emma. So thank you so much, because you do bring something incredible to our conversations, and also are encouraging all of us to think beyond the immediacy of, well, you're thinking of women in the terms of they've been born biologically, not in the terms of those who have transitions, those who are in the process of transition, those obviously who are identifying as. And at the end of the day, we are women, and we all need to be embraced as women, treated equally, fairly, with equity, and know that they belong, irrespective whether it be in IOSH, in the OSH profession, anywhere in the industry, and anywhere out there in society at large. So thank you so much. Coming back then, yes.
Yvonne, can I just come back in on that just for 1 second before we move on? I absolutely respect you and appreciate what you've just said. Can I just say that I call myself a trans woman because I am very open and very honest that I am biologically, I was born with male outward, but inside my head, I've always believed I'm female. So I get it that people sometimes can't understand that, but I do call myself a trans woman because I will forever be respectful that my now ex-wife and my mum had children, and I would never have been able to have children. And that's why I love all women. So I want to break the bias, not because I'm a trans woman standing up for rights. I want to break bias for all women. And I just wanted to say that, just in case anybody was thinking that, you know, I had this kind of weird ulterior motive. It's not true. I know I'm a trans woman, and that's what I am. So thank you.
But no one would ever know, Emma, without you saying, because I tell you, you are as glamorous than many of us women. I've said that to you before. I would never look that glamorous. So thank you very much on that part. Coming back to the point I was making, thank you very much, Emma. Vanessa, you have this lovely new colleague working with you on EDI with policies for IOSH. Would you like to explain where that's going to take us now, particularly given obviously we are broadening out the scope to really have an inclusive IOSH within the employees and also the volunteers?
Yeah, I mean, it's just fantastic. So Fiola Francis is our EDI lead, and she joined us, I guess, about 6 months ago now. And yeah, with a huge task, actually. So 3 things that we want to achieve to break the bias, but for everything on it to do with EDI, not just women. So the first bit really is trying to get our own house in order as an employer. So, you know, we're a small to medium-sized enterprise, but actually we work like a big company. You know, we're in 130 countries across the world, 49,000 members, growing and growing. You know, so we have to be absolutely exemplary in what we do as an employer. You know, everything about health, safety and well-being is about being true to yourself and being able to bring your whole self to work so that you do have good well-being and mental health. So, you know, if we're not practicing that as an employer and looking after our colleagues and our volunteers well and allowing that to happen, then, you know, we're hardly going to be credible, are we? So for me, it's an absolute moral thing that needs to happen, but it's also really essential, being the type of organisation that we are. You know, exist for the public good. So it's why I work in the organisation that we do, because those are my values. So the board fantastically agreed to take charitable reserves, which are ring-fenced monies to do public good, and invest just short of £200,000 over the next 3 years on 3 main pieces of work. So first bit, getting our own house in order as an employer. The second bit, then starting to work with our amazing thousands of volunteers that give so freely to IOSH every day, to support them and to enable them to be successful and to be psychologically safe in what they do and to bring their whole selves to their volunteering. Out to our membership then from there. And then our real ambition in the third phase is to start influencing the profession. You know, we as a profession suffer an aging demographic, a predominantly male demographic, a predominantly white demographic. If we want this profession to survive, be sustainable and to continue to save lives and protect life, then we have to bring new blood into it. And so one of the key things that IOSH did under Work 2022 was start to bring that younger, perhaps more diverse membership in, and we are seeing the results of that now. So we're seeing the average age of members coming down, more female members joining than ever there were before, far more ethnically diverse members coming in. So we know that actually just the few things that we've done under Work 2022 have had impact, and this is just going to take us on to the next level. So Viola is one of the most inspirational people I have ever worked with. I've spent two sessions with her today, and I feel like I've had an education. Every day I learn something more from her, and she adds such value to the organisation. So I'm just so proud to have her on board, really, and yeah, hoping that we can support each other to do great things.
Fantastic phrase there. Before you go off though, and you didn't mention in there, yes, you are an SME. For most organisations, though, there's a duty on employers to publish the gender pay gap.
That's right.
And etc. Now, I know you're doing some fantastic work, Vanessa, not because you need to. So please do share with those online and those that will tune in later.
Thank you for reminding me. Yes, one of the challenges of being the age I am is that I have menopausal brain, so sometimes I forget stuff. So yeah, I think we were really keen to start to look, even though we are a small business, so we don't legally have to share our pay and the gaps that are in it, but you know, if we're going to be true and honest and transparent about what we're doing and demonstrate that we mean what we say, I felt it was really important that we actually go through and look at what the gender pay gap is, but actually we're going further. So we've also looked at disability pay gap and ethnic background pay gap as well, and we are in the process of gathering that data. I don't think it's going to be that great, but we are determined that we want to share it and show where we're starting from, and actually everybody can then start to judge us about how we move forward and hold us to account on that. So with the board's support, I'm really pleased that we will be publishing at the beginning of April, just like every large business, and showing exactly what we're going to do to make things better. You know, that again, it's just, I can't tell you how inspiring that is and how excited I'm about it, even though I know that at this stage it probably won't be that great a picture.
Better to have a picture to start with a baseline, exactly, so that you can improve upon.
How do we make change if we are not honest? It's back to what Emma was saying about getting those role models. Somebody needs to stick their neck out and be honest about stuff, and otherwise we will never have change. So I couldn't agree more with what Emma was saying earlier. It's just so important.
Thank you very, very much. With regards to the menopausal women, obviously you're in good company with some of them. You already know my views on shedding light on menopausal women, you know, the muffin body and the fact that my memory now and again kind of tweaks, but we bring with us some awesome, vivacious, voluptuous, curvaceous professionalism as well. We bring with us a wealth of wisdom and experience that then leans and really works in very, very well for many employers.
And a lot of lists, Yvonne, as well, to help with the foggy memory.
Oh yeah, most definitely. So we tend to be a wee bit better organised, well, maybe not better, but along that line. On the menopause, did you know that Sadiq Khan, London's mayor, announced today that they are proposing a groundbreaking menopausal leave at London City Hall. So that's maybe something else that IOSH want to consider. I think all credit to them, but why on earth did they have to wait to International Women's Day? to announce that. Scotland's construction sector has launched a new plan which aims to increase diversity and inclusion and women in the workplace. Really? So what have you been doing all these years? Okay. Again, there's fresh comments in and content for the Rose Review, the Progress Report 2022, just again today published, that their plan is to boost the number of female entrepreneurs. So tell me, are those women not been out there already? What's going on? We have these International Women's Day. There's a lot of great stuff published, launched. International Women's Day, we need to be seen to be doing something, tick, tick, tick box exercise. What happens tomorrow? It's forgotten about. I'm taking at your words. Vanessa, Louise, Ria, I'm sure exactly the same for yourself, Emma. You lead the way, you forward the charge. We come together collaboratively to change, to break the bias. Ria, I'm sorry, I'm leaving you out there. I don't want to. Let me bring you right back in, my dearie. And the reason I'm going to bring you down, because we all are discriminated through bias, etc. Right? You are, dare I say, sorry, ladies on the call, but Ria, you're probably one of our younger panel members. Yeah, within this particular panel here. Okay.
Well, I'm not sure about that, Yvonne, because Louise is a teenager and Vanessa and Emma, they're in their early 20s. So.
Now, remember, Ria, we were talking here about honesty, transparency. So let's be honest here. Okay, age doesn't come into it. You have ability, you have experience. I know you have a professionalism that's second to none. You are fantastic at your job. I've checked you out before even Andy introduced us. So I know you're really good at what you do. I'm coming to you because, again, Trinidad and Tobago is very different from the UK. The bias and discrimination differs from country to country. Right now, if you were given one opportunity to change things, to improve things in your country, your area, what would it be?
That's a really good question, Yvonne. I think what I would do would be to try to get the management team, the leadership of companies aware of women's potential to do better. We do have the competencies, we can get the job done. Just because we're not menfolk doesn't mean that we cannot see results. You know, for recruitment phases, even though we have legislation for equal opportunities and so on, for interviews, I still get asked questions like, how old are you? Are you married? Do you have children? Do you intend on having children? If you have children, how will that impact the performance in the job? Why, you know, what does that have to do with competencies? How would, I mean, you know, what does that have to do with getting the job done?
It has nothing at all to do with it at all,
exactly.
Ria.
So it's really about raising the awareness, having the leadership team see two sides of the coin. So just because men appear to be a little more assertive sometimes, depending on the situation, doesn't mean that women can't perform in the same role and see results, or even better results.
Absolutely. The best performing organizations, the best performing and highest profit organizations are those organizations that recognize and value women, have them in their senior leadership team, and there are huge dividends to be had from that, and that's reported worldwide. Those organizations who invariably have women as chief execs and chairman of the board do better and outperform their male counterparts, organizations led by their male counterparts. Research, empirical evidence to support that. It doesn't always mean, however, that a female getting to the senior leadership team, coming into chief exec, into director role, into chairman role, they themselves are advocates of women. Why do you think that is, ladies?
I think there's still this massive credibility gap. So when you get into a leadership perspective, I've definitely felt that, although I will also say that I've been hired as consultantly because people want women, and actually there is a general need at the moment. I think if you speak to any recruiter in health and safety, they can't get women through their doors fast enough at the moment in health and safety. So there is that. But there is this credibility gap between men and women. And, you know, I heard someone actually say you very rarely meet a woman in a senior position, in a leadership position, who's not particularly good. And I can give you loads of men in senior leadership positions who haven't been that great. So, you know, there is that credibility gap, but I think in order to try and narrow it, there are, you know, women kind of feel like they've got to be a certain way. And again, it comes back to that authenticity. So you feel that you've got to be a bit like a man. And I've actually never done that in the whole of my career. I think when I was, you know, because I came out of the blocks, you know, as an environmental health officer, so I've done health and safety for a really long time. And when I was 21, which was only a few years ago, I discovered, you know, I didn't have that kind of authority in my voice or my stature or my size. And I was really young. I was a young regulator. And so I found for me, having a collaborative coaching style and being conscious of the people that I was working with, that got more results for me. It did help at the start. I could serve notice and prosecute people, but you know, you kind of learn to adapt as you go on, and I think that happens because women see successful men who have got up the ladder by you know, stamping on everybody else, to be quite frank, and they feel that that's the way they've got to be. And I guess what we're saying is you don't.
I think another point here as well is that I do feel quite sorry for those individuals, and I am talking about the gentlemen who really want to go out of their way to find good women to bring into the fold and to try and develop and give these ladies the step up that they deserve. And probably rightly do, because in that moment, then you get this situation where people start saying, well, he's only doing that to look good. Well, what if he isn't? What if he's doing it because they were the best people? And on top of that, you know, no, I was going to say one thing, I'm going to say it another way. If there isn't people like that who are prepared to take that flack for standing up and going, no, she is the best person for this job. If you were better, I would have given you the job, but you weren't. But I hate to say it, but I do think that these, and it is generally men who start that process going, because let's face it, that top level is filled with men. So it's got to be that way. But those men that do that are already pummeled down by their male counterparts going, yeah, you just did it to look good. Crazy. How are you ever going to beat that?
It's the same reason why men who take paternity leave or shared parental leave or want to work flexibly, they face the same kind of negative behaviors. And so you know, but actually if we were able to encourage an environment where men felt able to do exactly the same things, we'd be achieving that equity that we're looking for, which is why I always talk about this. It's not a women's issue, it's an organizational issue. And if we can actually raise all of these standards, we raise up each other and we raise up whole nations to approach problems and confrontation in a very different way.
Absolutely. Emma, coming back to you, obviously, and you're back in the day, okay, back in that day when obviously you're living life in the body of the man back before you transitioned, you held a very, very senior role, very senior role in industry. Did you ever feel obliged to quota fill for women?
Well, that is a good question. Funnily enough, even I was biased in a way, because I openly, when I was a manager, I openly went looking for female assistant managers. Why? Because they tick boxes, they dot I's and cross T's. So even I was a bit biased, to be honest. But when I was in hospitality, which is a slightly different world, you literally went after the best people, or I did anyway. But I did see other nightclub owners who went after women because they needed women behind the bar. Those women were almost never general managers. Lower level, I get it. But did I definitely, to be honest, I was a little bit, I broke the bias, but maybe I shouldn't have done. I don't even have a clue if I've even answered what you've just said, Yvonne, but it sounded a good story.
No, you did, Emma, because obviously I was taking it from that other perspective. I know that this moment in time, there are quotas being set and ratios to be filled and KPIs to be met, and some companies are being set targets if they have public government spending, for budgets. If they're going for work that are public spending, then they have to reach a quota of a percentage of the number of engineers, for example, need to be women, irrespective of whether they're the right people for the job. Now, I do take the view that I want a fair and equitable standing for everyone so that we can widen out the talent pool for everyone, but it has to be the right people for the job and not to fill a quota to meet that ratio. And I think that fundamentally we've got something wrong there, because if someone goes into a role and they're very, very capable, but it's known that that organisation is only recruiting to fill the quota, then their role, their value is effectively diminished in the eyes of their peers before they've even got out the starting blocks. And again, I'd love to see us change all of that. Yes, Emma.
Can I just come back in on that? Okay, so just literally on that point, just for a second, I have been openly pushed when I was an area manager by my regional and by my retail director to go for a specific gender or a specific race of person, colour, etc., person of colour. I have been openly told to actively go looking for a specific person, which I flatly refused, but people back then didn't realise that I had an ulterior motive, which was that I always believed I was female. So you know what? I'm just going to live by a real moral set of values, but I have been openly pushed to do it.
Anyone else been pushed to do exactly the same? No?
I mean, I'd just say something about data, actually, because again, we're health and safety professionals, we love a bit of data. And part of my themes is people, sustainability, and putting heart into health and safety. So what I'm trying to say is the data is important and process is important, but people are behind all of this. And I remember one of the first times Vanessa and I were at conference, actually, and I was talking about this at our IOSH conference, and I've never been a big advocate for quotas because I think it unbalances things, but I do actually think we need to have a mind on the data, because when I joined IOSH in 1999, when I was 5, I think it was something like 19% of the membership were women. And the new stats that we've just dug out say that it's now 21.7%. And I actually think that's gone up 1.5% since I've been in the presidential team. So it has gone up. But what we do know is that from a grades perspective, we've got proportionately less women at chartered and fellowship status. So what that means is that we absolutely have fewer women in health and safety professions, and ERM did some research that demonstrated this as well, is that there's something like 15% of health and safety professionals in a leadership role are women. So again, it's below that data. And what that means is that we're looking at our health and safety through a masculine lens. And I've experienced this in my work before, when I, worked for a big corporate and I was trying to get regular rest facilities for the women in the business who were pregnant, they needed someone to rest. But in that business, they were predominantly secretaries and support staff, and there was no appetite to create change from that perspective because it was viewed through a masculine lens. So there's a very real challenge for us as health and safety professionals to bring that balance, to shift that balance. So although I'm not a huge advocate for data, I do watch that data. And I think we have a lot of data in IOSH. And so I'm sure that that's going to be something that the internal team will be looking at, how we can shift that. We need a member dashboard on it, Vanessa.
We have one of sorts, and it's something that I look at on a monthly basis. And you're right, the shift has come over the last few years. The same with the sort of ethnic background and the lowering of the age of the profession, and the sort of a great sort of intersectionality map of that starting to emerge. So I think that the profile of the profession is slowly changing, but it's because we've applied direct action to start to talk in a language which is more accessible to the groups that are underrepresented, and to target activity.
About menopause.
Yeah, who'd have thought we'd be doing that? Who'd thought we were doing that? I just want to add in, I hate quotas. I just fundamentally disagree with them. I understand they're well intentioned in trying to sort of redress the balance, but if I want to know that I've got something on merit and because of the things that I bring to the party, not because I'm making up the numbers. Just how horrendous is that? And if the person who's made up the quota is rubbish, that just completely knocks back all the hard work that we're trying to do. Again, whatever background you're trying to represent, it just seems to me it's a fool's errand. So yeah, I get quite passionate about that. As Louise said, we had some good debates, didn't we, a few years ago about quotas. I understand why people think it might be a good idea, but I don't want to be part of that.
Completely agree, Vanessa. My master's is applied social research, and data in all its forms, I know how flawed it can be because it's open to interpretation, how you set up your survey, etc. It's flawed. Statistics, lies, and more lies, and that's my ilk. I've always been more qualitative than quantitative. Talking about qualitative, Ria, I am so sorry, because you have the most incredible background at the back, you're the glittery, sparkly, so I should be raising you up here just now. Ria, we had a conversation the other week there, and obviously things are different where you are in your part of the world. What would you benefit from to ensure that you and other women within your environment and within your sector are elevated? And I know we were talking about changing, almost changing the hearts and minds of the people within organisations, but what do you need from IOSH? Do we have a woman-to-woman peer support group within IOSH? Ladies?
I don't think so, do we?
Do we?
Well, there's lots of different activities, no one sort of formal group, but lots of things going on. So, for example, there's a really great group of women who are fellows who've come together to champion showing other women how they can come forward. I was just about to reply. So, is the number low because women don't see a progression route? I think they can see the progression route, and there's absolutely nothing in terms of the process that should be stopping them. But I think there's something about confidence. Am I good enough? The dreaded imposter syndrome, that comes through, that people talk themselves out of it before they've even started. So I'm absolutely indebted, ladies. You know who you are, for outing the statistics and for starting to take action, because actually just that little group of women has seen a great shift. In fact, I was tracking some of the data a few days ago, and I can see the peak of applications that came in at roughly the same time that those ladies were doing a lot of hustling on LinkedIn. So, you know, it is making a difference. People may not think these small actions do, you know, that's how you break the bias. Every single conversation, every shoulder that you tap, and then give encouragement, you know, championing each other to say you're good enough and you can do it. It makes a difference.
Just to say as well, Yvonne, is that part of the work that I've been doing is I've created apart from IOSH, created a not-for-profit called OneWISH, and we've had a phenomenal response to everything that we've doing. We've had an incredible day today. And it's just encouraging women to step forward and connect with each other. And I think social media has really fueled that. And so, you know, that is very much at the moment focused on women. And the reason for that is we've got significant organisations that say they want women in the profession and they can't get them. And so we've got to start that conversation and create a pipeline. And just, you know, being out there is going to create better health and safety in the long run. So it's why I've always been a massive advocate for this, because at the end of the day, my priority is to save lives. So, you know, we're definitely going to do that. So yeah, I mean, the stuff we're doing in OneWISH has been phenomenal because we're bringing together all of the organisations to talk about it.
Excellent. It's a great initiative, Louise. And I know that's going to grow arms and legs because it's very, very much needed, and the great work that you're doing there just now. Emma, I'm going to come to you because I'm conscious of time. I'm going to come to all of you. As similar to what I said to Ria earlier, if you were given the opportunity within the next 24 hours to change our society and our workplace for the better, to become more equitable, what one thing could you suggest?
Wow. I always thought I wanted to be seen, and I will come to a quick answer, but I always thought I wanted to be seen as the best person I could be to show that transgender people, transgender women especially, are just human beings. Actually, what I've realized in the last year since going to university is I just want to be seen as Emma. So I think my answer is see me for the person who I am and not for the statistics you've got in front of you. And if I very quickly go back to finish my point here, if I very quickly go back to how come I can't seem to land a big job anymore, because let me tell you, this brain ticks at 1,000 miles an hour. But it also ticked at 1,000 miles an hour when I lived in my male corporate world. So what's changed? So for me, it's about treating everybody fairly, treating everybody equitably. And if I could make a sweeping change right now, it would be to normalize being normal.
That's a challenge, isn't it? How do you normalize being normal when the definition of normal differs from person to person and there's not one set definition? That's a challenge. That's a big ask.
That's why I think that everybody's normal. Doesn't matter whether you're disabled, whether you're male, female, young, old, transgender, Martian. It doesn't matter. To me, everybody is normal. It's just you're normal.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Emma. Vanessa, what would be your one thing to take away if you had 24 hours to change?
I think I've got a piece of advice for individuals and a piece of advice for organisations, just to be greedy. So the piece of advice for individuals, I think, is really what Emma has said about being yourself and being comfortable with it. Don't shy away from who you are. Be proud of who you are, because everybody has impact and everybody can make a contribution to society. So just be confident in who you are. And for organisations, I think it's stop ticking boxes. Actions speak louder than words. So you know, we're trying at IOSH to put action in place that has meaningful impact and to role model the things that we say that make good health and safety and good well-being practice. So, you know, we're putting our money where our mouth is, quite literally. We're prepared to be vulnerable in that, so we know that to out the things that we need to change will probably come under some criticism because it's not perfect. But to get anywhere near perfect, we've got to out the stuff and we've got to have action. So for companies, it's about being authentic in your action and not just paying lip service to these things.
Thank you, Vanessa. Louise?
Yeah, I mean, there are things that we can do as individuals, but then that's putting it on women to solve the problem. So, you know, I'm a firm believer that this is about organisations and about organisational approach, and it's no good just having the policies and talking the talk. You've got to walk the walk, and you know, recognize that it is harder for women, there is a credibility gap, and go out and ask the questions, speak to the women in your organizations, find out for them and find out what they need, because, you know, we're very resourceful individuals and we want to do a good job. We want to be treated equitably, which is different to equally. And, you know, work with us and work with the women in your organization, and also work with the men in your organization as well, so that they can, you know, hear all of this and it can land, because we're absolutely stronger together. And as I keep saying, in our profession, this is, you know, part of how we can be stronger in terms of what we're doing in the world of health and safety. So all about organisational change for me.
Thank you, Louise. Ria, do you want to add any more to that one that you gave me earlier?
I think the team summed it up quite nicely, but definitely I think we do have a long way to go if we truly want to break the bias from both an organizational level and you know, getting that general support. And I think IOSH as an organization has been doing a phenomenal job with all the webinars that they've been hosting. So they focus on both not just technical, but also the soft side of things. So that I don't really see other organizations doing that. And I think it really helps build confidence and competency. And I think that's really instrumental.
Thank you very much. Well, mine would be speak up, call it out. If something isn't right, call it out. It doesn't matter. I have to say, and in some respects, I am privileged because I'm at that stage in my life where, quite frankly, I don't care if I'm going to upset the corporate bigwigs who are living in the prehistoric ages. Things need to change for the better so that we do have that equitable workplace, equitable communities, equitable society, where everyone has the right to live a healthy, happy, safe, empowered life and balanced life. Know that they belong. So words have the power to change the world. Again, bringing from this lovely book here, but I couldn't have summed it up any better if I'd tried. Ladies, please keep being awesome. To all our other women on the call and beyond in the IOSH network or throughout any of the social media channels, never ever dim your light. You are incredible. You were put on this earth for a particular purpose. Follow your path, follow your dreams, and never ever allow the patriarchal systems or any domineering men to dictate your future. You can create your future. You just need to stay the path. To all our allies of any gender on this call or tuning in, thank you so very much. Please do speak up, empower, support, and make sure that the world becomes a better place, not just now, but for the future, for all the future generations of IOSH professionals and other professionals across the world. Thank you very, very much, ladies. On that note, I best hand back to Andy.
Hello again. Well, listen, honestly, I could listen to this conversation for another hour and a half and another hour and a half after that. I think you've all been absolutely fantastic. Sharing your stories, sharing your thoughts. It's been, I mean, some of the comments coming through as well. I put a little cheeky post out there on LinkedIn as well, and some of the comments coming back as well. Fantastic. I think the big thing for me is it's not just about today. It's not just about the 8th of March. And I was just giving a bit of thought there that 8th of March is, it's International Women's Day. I've seen a lot of posts out there, supporting and celebrating. What's going to happen tomorrow? What's going to happen the day after that? And I think you ladies have put the point across really, really well, that it's not just about, well, in fact, it's about what we do in the future moving forwards. And we do need to keep challenging and keep breaking that bias. Just on a closing note, I'm just going to share my screen very quickly again. And this is a photograph, actually, that Yvonne, you shared with us. Can you all see that? You're going to have to speak to me because my screen's disappeared now.
Yeah, we can hear you. We can see it.
Yeah, so this is, in fact, this was what you shared, Yvonne. This was a CEO conference, security conference, I believe, that was held in Munich quite recently. And I think, to be honest, the picture says it all. I don't think there's much more to say about that.
Yeah, we need to change the dynamics, Andy. That has set a cascade of social media influencers speaking up about it, but the reality is that's still the case within our society and within industry, and we need to change it. People like Vanessa, people like Louise and others within our industry are starting to change the norm, but we need to do a lot more to make sure that we have more photos around the board table. And I know Vanessa's got a task and an action to share the senior leadership team around the boardroom moving forward. And that's likely to be published to all of the IOSH network and through all the social media channels in the coming weeks. Isn't that correct, Vanessa? Yeah, thank you.
And just to say as well, there was a 6-year gap between me becoming president and the last president, which is Karen McDonnell, who you all know. I'm only the 7th female president in 76 years. So I need people following me, please. And I'm doing my best to advocate for that and get women into council, involved in branches. Whenever there's opportunities to volunteer in board subcommittees. We did blind sifting at the last open trustee appointment, and the 5 shortlists were all women. So in IOSH, we need to get women into those leadership roles and into the presidential team, because I actually spent 2 years in the presidential team on my own, which I think I need a medal for.
Well, they've certainly got the right person driving it forward, Louise. Well, listen, I'm going to wrap things up here. Thank you so much again for attending tonight. I know you've all had extremely long days, particularly on today. You've probably done so many webinars, talks, but thank you so much. And I really hope that some of you are going to be able to return and do the same again next year. Probably some for a 3rd year. Hey, Louise? And Yvonne? On that note, listen, thank you very much for attending tonight's celebration of International Women's Day on Break the Bias. I hope it's been worthwhile. And yeah, we wish you all the best and see you again soon. Thank you. Take care now. Thanks, ladies.